do this. And I'm just going to go grab that one thing. All right. Ross, do you want to start us off or do you want me to start?
Welcome. Hello. Just looking for new people. There's some new people.
Oh,
309126.
Me. Oh, I don't know how to put my name in yet. Oh.
Do you see little three dots somewhere in your picture?
Yep.
Right-hand corner.
Right-hand corner, top corner. Click on those three dots.
Yep.
Bottom of that list is rename. There you go.
I want to read that.
Yeah, mine says reset.
No, record. What's... Well, I don't know.
reset. I think I can rename you here.
So,
I'll sit over here.
hi, welcome.
Over here.
Oh, what are we doing with Menti?
I don't actually have the Menti, so that's a remnant from a days gone by. So
Okay.
productions, yeah.
Did you have something fun in mind?
Well, we could go around and say our favorite cocktail. I feel like that's always a good conversation starter. If we do it quickly, of course. We don't want anyone like past their bedtime, but
gin and tonic with lavender syrup.
Oh, that's mine.
and you have to introduce yourself too. You should start with the introduction so people don't judge you too harshly just based on the drink.
Okay, it's Ross Barnett on the district chair. So I like a lot of gin. A little bit. No, I'm kidding. No, just a little gin. But lavender syrup is lovely because Roseanne makes it, and it comes from our garden. So Kirk's next.
Rose. Oh, okay. I'll go next.
Oh no, Roseanne's next because she's in the same picture.
There we go.
I'm Roseanne Field. I am the district counselor. And I was going to say gin and tonic with either homemade lilac, magnolia, lavender, or rose syrup.
Excellent.
Some people grow gardens. I make syrups out of flowers. Only edible.
And I've had their lavender syrup, and it is actually very, very good. So I can vouch. Okay, I'll just go top to bottom on my screen here. So Don, you're up next. Don Moore. Oh, you're muted, Don.
Okay, I'm Don Moore, Rotary Club of Walkerton, currently sitting as YEO and training a new person who has not signed on yet. So glad to be here.
Okay, good to have you. And next is Nathania.
Hi, I'm Nathania
You didn't hear
Field.
Don's cocktail.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, Don, what's your drink of preference?
Oh, rum and tonic, usually.
Rum and tonic. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Or okay. Rum and Coke. Or rum and Coke, yeah.
Gold standard. All right, Nathania, you're up.
Hi, I'm Nathania Field. I am the district rebound coordinator, and I am also the YEC for the Goderich Rotary Club. And I don't really drink, but when I do enjoy a gin and tonic with cranberry.
Nice. Thanks, Nathania. Okay, Mark.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Oliver. I am the Youth Exchange Officer for St. Mary's. Drink of choice, probably either a well-made gin and tonic or a dirty banana.
A what? What is a dirty banana?
A dirty banana is a drink made with dark rum, cream, rum chata, simple syrup, and of course bananas and a lot of crushed ice.
Okay, that sounds amazing. That's like a different take on a pina colada, like a creamy. Sounds very good. Interesting. All right, cool. Thank you, Mark. Over to Sherry and Judy.
I'm Sherry from Strathroy Club, and I am helping Kirk be the YEO, or maybe he's helping me.
There we go. And what's your favorite drink, Sherry?
Oh, my favorite drink? I know my favorite food. My
You can
favorite
go with
drink,
that.
water.
That's fine.
And
We're all
my,
just learning about each other.
yeah, my food is that crap you buy at the store, the caramel corn and popcorn.
Oh,
Chicago mix. Chicago mix.
yeah, true. So Sherry is in my club, and I have like incriminating photos of her like diving in for bags of or like handfuls of Chicago mixed popcorn. Yeah, that's very true. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
addictive.
that
Yeah.
is my drug of choice.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sherry. Judy.
I'm Judy McNeil, and I am the YEC for Strathroy this year. Um, and I don't drink that much, but if I do, I like a nice glass of red wine.
Nice, perfect. I guess I really should have said since, more and more people aren't drinking, I feel like if you just want to mention your favorite drink, alcoholic or otherwise, that's totally fine. I mean, maybe someone likes milk, so that's all good. Doesn't have to be alcoholic. So, okay, on to Aiden.
Hi, I'm Aiden. I'm our district conference logistics coordinator and maybe kind of the YEO. That one's questionable. Uh, and my favorite drink is called a French 75.
Which
Um,
is
and it's champagne with gin and lemon juice.
oh, fancy. Okay, very nice. And Aiden is not preparing for a rainstorm. She is a photographer, hence the
Oh,
umbrella
yeah.
policy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the studio.
All right, thanks, Aiden. Over to Pavan.
Hey guys, I'm Pawan Kumar Jairaj. I am the new treasurer for the district committee, and I usually enjoy a good beer, or if it's a cocktail, it will probably be the Long Island iced tea. It's one of that.
Nice. All right, thanks, Pavan. Leslie.
I'm Leslie. I'm the YEC in St. Mary's. And my favorite cocktail would be a Negroni. I also like a Manhattan.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leslie. Over to Suzanne.
Hi everyone, I am Suzanne. I am one of the Outbound coordinators, and my cohort is Elizabeth, and she's currently setting up for her wedding because she is getting married on Saturday. So you could hear from both of us basically. My favorite drink, I don't really drink a whole lot anymore, but it's probably a tequila sunrise or Paloma.
Very nice. Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne. Over to Shirley. Oh, Shirley, you're muted there. Just unmute yourself first.
Hi, I'm Shirley Bonneville from the Walkerton Rotary Club, and I'm not much of a drinker either, but I do like a nice cocktail drink. Several different kinds occasionally.
Nice. Perfect. Thanks, Shirley. And Heather, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Heather Walton, and I'm the YEO in Thornbury, Clarksburg. And usually go with white wine, but since everyone's getting a little fancy, I like a Greyhound.
Very nice. Awesome. Thanks, Heather.
Yeah.
And my name is Kirk. I'm the inbound coordinator for our district and the incoming chair. So at the end of this year, Ross will be retiring as chair after 5 years, and I'll be stepping in. My favorite drink, I'm clearly not much of a fancy drinker because my husband and I have so much booze left over from our wedding that literally just sits mostly untouched. So if you ever need a bottle of something, just swing by and we probably have it sitting in our liquor cabinet. I would just say like a nice dry red wine is probably like my go-to, especially if it's like cool out. So. Okay, let's push on ahead. So just to start off, I actually want to start with a thank you, which might seem weird, but I wanted to take just a moment for the clubs that had a student in the past year. I feel like so much happens through the year. I would say clubs get maybe about a month where there's no student in their club, maybe a month and a half, if depending on when their inbound leaves, and then it's like back into it again, right? And I feel like we don't take very much time to kind of recognize all that you just put into helping this small teenager become a better ambassador, a better kid, a better human. And so that's what I wanted to do. Just take a minute to say, if you've had a student that just has gone home recently, just thank you for that. I mean, you've been in addition to, caring for this inbound, you've been prepping an outbound to go on exchange, and hopefully they have left or are leaving soon. And I think just, pat on the back to all of you, because that's such a big thing to do, to be managing the inbound program, the outbound program at the same time is pretty enormous. And I think all of the time and effort we put into these kids, I'm sure it goes unnoticed by a lot of people because they just don't know the work that goes into it. But I think the district committee here, so myself and Ross and Nathaniel, we know how much work goes into it. So just know that we're very grateful for all of the time and effort you put into the kids, and it shows, right? They come and talk about how much they love their YEOs and how much they love their Rotary clubs, and so the effort you're putting in definitely is worthwhile. So thank you for that. Okay. And now all the things you have to do for the upcoming year. Here we go. No, I'm just kidding.
Hang on, Kirk. I'm just gonna you just made me think of something.
Okay.
When we were in Chicago, not Chicago, that's a different city altogether. Calgary. I was at a workshop, and somebody said, "Why are youth exchange volunteers so dedicated?" And this one lady said, "Because we're committed to a person, not a project. We commit to look after these kids, and I think that's really, really different than committing to planting a tree or volunteering every week at a shelter or something." And as Kirk said, thank you for committing to these kids. I've got the wrong glasses on. That's why everything's fuzzy. So yeah. All right. Back to you.
Thanks, Ron. No, that's okay. That's all good. So just a quick agenda of what we're gonna cover tonight. A few things have shifted from what I sent in the email, but it's more or less the same thing. So there's some basic information. I know for many of you that have been in the program for a number of years, this is repetitive, but we are required as part of our Rotary International Youth Exchange certification. We're required to cover certain things every year. So we'll try to keep it bumping, keep it moving fast, so that we can get out in probably 2 hours, hopefully. But there are just some things we need to mention. We'll talk then a little bit about what the club commitments situation is going to look like for the 26-27 Rotary year. And then we'll talk about the outbound program, or Suzanne will talk to us mostly about the outbound program. I'll talk to you a little bit about the inbound program. And then we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for Q&A, and then a quick moment to just recap and talk about the next steps. So hopefully we'll get all that done by 9 o'clock and everybody can be off to bed. Okay. So as part of the intro, just knowing kind of who your district committee is, they are right here. So you've got, of course, Ross is our chair this Rotary year. We've got, it says Harry Justin. I realized I updated the photo, but not the name. His name is not Harry Justin. It's Pavan Jayaraj. My apologies, Pavan. He has stepped in as our treasurer, which is wonderful. We're super happy to have him on the committee. In fact, Pavan became a Rotarian on a Thursday and was attending a youth exchange conference and committing to district treasurer on like Saturday by noon. So that was pretty awesome. That's probably one of our fastest recruitment efforts ever. So we're super appreciative to have him on the committee. And then, like Aiden said, she is our conference logistics coordinator. So she's the one helping organize all of the logistics related to our conferences. So where are they going to be, making sure our bills for them get paid, making sure everybody has food, making sure everyone has a bed, and that all of that's getting communicated in a timely manner. Another person is our youth protection officer. So they're a member of the district committee, but of course they're bigger than just youth exchange. They're technically in charge of youth protection across the district, and that is Steve Litchie from the Petrolia Club. Okay. And then our district counselor, of course, is Roseanne Field. So she helps with really a number of things, not just in our training, but students who are having situations with culture shock or maybe homesickness or other, mental health emergencies or otherwise. Roseanne has always been there to really help us out and step in and really provide guidance on those situations. So we're super grateful for that. Then we have our outbound coordinators. Of course, that's Suzanne, who you met, and Elizabeth Van Bakel, who is getting ready for her wedding on Saturday, so she couldn't be with us today. But they are obviously in charge of the outbound program. And then you've got me, who's in charge of the inbound program. And then Nathania, who is our awesome rebound coordinator. So we're super happy to have Nathania on board, because the idea of a rebound coordinator, for those of you that are past exchange students, you know that this is a very new role. Rebounds were they came back. We were excited to have them back, but we didn't really have much structure around any sort of programming for them. And yet we're always telling our families and our students that this is a 3-year program, right? You have an outbound year where you're prepping for exchange. You have an inbound year where you're on exchange, and then you have a rebound year where you're back from exchange and you're starting to feel how different things are. And yet we haven't ever provided really much structure or formality around it. And so Nathania has done an incredible job of building out that structure so that when our rebounds come to the conferences, they're not just told, okay, go help go help the kitchen staff, or, go help the inbounds with homework. It's like they have their own program. They get to talk about what it's like for them to be back home, how they're adjusting and whatnot. So we're super happy to have Nathania because she's provided that really awesome structure. So thank you. And the last one, we are recruiting. Applications are being accepted as we speak. If anyone is interested in the position of district secretary, that was Danielle Bork for a number of years, but of course she and Dawn are quietly slipping away to Mexico. And so we are looking for a district secretary. It is mostly administrative, and I'm not even entirely sure what it all entails, but I would say if that's something of interest, or if you think someone in your club might, be interested in that, I'd encourage you to reach out to Ross, and he can fill you in on kind of what that looks like and what some of the responsibilities are that entails. Ross, did I miss anything? Oh, you're muted, Ross. Did you have? I didn't see whether you had anything. No. Okay, good. Okay, we'll keep forging ahead then. It wouldn't be a Rotary meeting without a plethora of terminology to worry about. So we'll just go over those really quickly so you know what it is we're talking about. RI, of course, is Rotary International, RYE, Rotary Youth Exchange, and then there's a number of other ones that we deal with from time to time. And so you'll see those acronyms come up, and we just want to try and sort of simplify that. So the MOE is the Ministry of Education. That we're dealing with them a lot, more so with our inbound students when it comes to getting them into the schools. On the US side, we don't have any American outbounds or inbounds yet, we've had them before, but we don't have any currently. So that's Department of State that deals a lot with the exchange program on the US side. The CSIET, the Council on Standards for International Travel, Education Travel, they manage or sort of we work with them a little bit in terms of standards for the exchange program. They're not as, I would say, involved on the Canadian side of things, but definitely on the US side, it's an organization, a body that we have to be sort of aware of and work with. And then Central States we'll talk about in a minute, so I won't give away too much there. And then NAYAN is the North American Youth Exchange Network. So that's a network of districts all across North America, Canada, the US, and Mexico that all work together for the purposes of youth exchange in order to help with training, with just making things easier, trying to leverage economies of scale and that sort of thing. It's not sort of an official body that we're part of in the same way that Central States is, but it is an organization that they do a conference that's really wonderful every year, that we go to, and we learn a lot from them. And then, of course, I think you folks already know a YEO is a youth exchange officer and a YEC is a youth exchange counselor. We'll talk about the difference of those two in a little bit. And then an inbound, of course, is coming to our district. An outbound is going out of our district to abroad, right? And a rebound is a student who has completed their year abroad and is in that initial year back. So when they first come back for that full year back, we consider them a rebound. And then a Rotex, we sort of joke that they're Rotex or rebounds with experience. So once they've been back for a year or more, then if they're still sticking around and whatnot, they're a Rotex. So when you hear Rotex, it's rebounds that have been back for their first full year. So they've completed that 3-year program that I talked about earlier. And then YEA is the Youth Exchange Administrative Hub, and it's where we store most of our volunteer management stuff. It's where we store most of our paperwork and whatnot that we have for the students as well. Okay. I know I'm going fast, so feel free just to slow me down if at any point you need to. In terms of a regulatory framework, just understanding, all the different bodies that we work with and kind of that we have to, whose rules we have to abide by and follow. There's a number there. So one of the first ones is, of course, Rotary International, because we're an official Rotary International sanctioned program. So we have to follow the Rotary Code of Policies, which is also known as the RCOP. It's 500, I think, some odd pages, a very riveting read if you're ever looking for something after you're done, Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. Really great. And there's 30 pages basically dedicated to youth exchange. So super duper exciting. And so that really lays out a lot of, for example, our certification, what we have to cover in our certification, in order to be a certified district in the program and that sort of thing. When it comes to stuff about youth protection, a lot of that is coming from the Rotary Code of Policy. So the reason we're going to talk about all of these different bodies a bit is because sometimes it can feel like you're getting mixed messaging, because Heather might say, well, I went to the school board and they said I have to have this form, but then the district said I don't. And now I'm not, it's not that we're trying to confuse anybody. It's generally that two or more of these bodies have differing views or opinions on a certain thing, and we're trying to figure out which rule we need to follow. That's often what's happening, basically. So then, of course, we're a member of Central States Rotary Youth Exchange, and so we are beholden to their rules and regulations and policies, right? As well as for our US clubs, the Department of State. And on the Canadian side, it's mostly Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which is the IRCC. So that's, all of our inbound students specifically are getting their study permits through the IRCC. Our outbound students don't really deal with it. It's more just our inbounds because they're, of course, coming in to Canada. And then, of course, our students are dealing with embassies and consulates around the world, especially those outbounds applying for their visas to go abroad. Suzanne is shaking her head and nodding and smiling because she's dealing with that with some of our inbounds as we speak. And of course, the last big component is the school systems, the boards, and the officials there. One we don't really have there, but we do also have to abide by their rules is our own district, right? So our district 6330, for example, we have a youth protection policy. It's created by the district, and we have to abide by that, for example. So there are district policies as well that we have to follow. So lots of different directions that I don't want to say we're getting pulled in, but certainly a lot of different bodies whose rules we have to be at least aware of so that we can make sure we're following all the different guidelines. Okay, moving along. Central States, I've mentioned a couple times. This is a map of the Central States district. So Central States Rotary Youth Exchange. It is an incorporated organization, and it's 20 districts that cover a number of states. You can see there Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, so on and so forth, and then some districts that include Ontario, Canada. So you've got 6290, you've got 5580, you've got 6310, 6330, 6380, and 6400 are all they're called international districts because they include both Canadian clubs and American clubs, and all of the rest in Central States are American clubs. So we work with them. I guess one of the reasons we work with them, if you're thinking like, why are we part of Central States if it just creates more rules we have to follow, there's economies of scale that we benefit from. And so if Mark was in a separate district that didn't have any this is called a multi-district, right? It's a multi-district youth exchange component or program. If Mark didn't have that and he was in District 1, 2, 3, 4, he would have to reach out to District 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 4, 2, every other district he wants to do exchange with, and set up a reciprocal exchange relationship with every single one of those districts separately and individually. And that's how he would be able to say, well, I have 3 spots in Brazil, I have 2 spots in India, I have 1 spot in Taiwan, because he's forged relationships with those individual districts. That's exciting and cool, but it's also extremely time consuming. And to really get a nice sort of breadth of country selection, you can imagine that you'd have to work really hard as one little district to provide enough options. So Central States provides the economy of scale in the sense that through their country correspondents who have relationships with many different districts in many countries, we can offer our students, the choice of 25 or 30 countries without having to have 25 or 30 independent relationships at our district alone. So basically we leverage their relationships is essentially one of the big components of being part of Central States. And Don Moore, who's here on the call, was actually the chair of Central States for a number of years and is just coming off being a country correspondent. So he managed the Asia Pacific countries, so Taiwan, India, Japan, Korea, Philippines, I think. So he was managing those relationships on behalf of all 20 of these districts so that we, as an individual district, didn't have to do that. And Central States has 4 country correspondents. There's Asia Pacific, there's Latin America, there's EMA, which is Europe and Africa, and Europe and Africa has 2 different country correspondents because they break up the countries between 2 people. Okay. And then the last component is the tri-district. So the tri-district is basically District 6330, District 6380, and District 6400. Now, it's not an official body or organization like the Central States Rotary Youth Exchange organization is. This is just us 3 districts during COVID kind of got together and said, hey, we're all very geographically close, as you can see. What if we started working together to, again, leverage those economies of scale? And instead of, each district training a small handful of kids, as a tri-district, we train a bigger group of kids, and we get to, have 3 outbound coordinators working together and 3 inbound coordinators working together, and so on. So that's been going pretty well. We've been doing that since we got back out of COVID. And it started mostly with outbound, and now we're definitely integrating a bit more of the inbound side and rebound side as well. There's definitely been hiccups as well. It hasn't been perfect by any means. I mean, that's always when you're working together, going to be some hiccups, but by and large, it's worked out. It's worked out pretty nicely. So it's funny because a lot of the outbounds, if you ask our Strathroy outbound Hadley, she might know we're from 6330 because I've tried to drill it into her, but she really just knows that she's a tri-district kid. And most of our tri-district kids, because to them, they're kind of like, we don't care what district they're from. I just know, my friends basically. And so it's kind of neat to see that they've really bonded quite well. And, they come back from exchange not caring that, oh, well, you're technically in Windsor, so you're 6400. In their head, they're just like, you're my friends. It's cool. So it's actually been really neat to see them forge these relationships while they're on exchange. Or sorry, before going on exchange, and then once they come back. All right. So a little update that I wanted to bring up. This is still in the works, but Suzanne and Elizabeth and Ross and I have been talking about this. It's a 3 strikes policy. So what we've been kind of observing, both on the inbound side and the outbound side, is a lack of accountability. Our kids are good kids by and large. Don't get me wrong. Our kids are well behaved. Our outbounds are good. Our inbounds are good. But when something doesn't go as planned, when they don't deliver on something they were supposed to, we're finding that there's not really any consequences, right? It's not very often that we don't send a student on exchange before they go. It's not very often that we send a kid home unless there's something really grave. And so what can happen is, Dawn contacts me and says, hey, my inbound, she's really not making an effort with her family. She's in her room all the time. I have a talk with her as the inbound coordinator and we kind of hope things get better, but there's not really anything there to be like, things have to get better. You came here to be an ambassador. We need to see you're doing a better job. And the same thing on the outbound side. So, Suzanne is going to Mexico. She's given her homework assignment where she's supposed to learn a bunch of Spanish vocabulary. And, homework check time comes up at the conference and the rebound that was working with her comes up to me and goes, Suzanne didn't really know much Spanish at all. I don't think she's really looked at that for more than 5 minutes. And we kind of go to her and we say, Suzanne, you got to know this. This is important. Language is the key to culture. And Suzanne's like, yeah, I know. I've just been busy. It's been rough. And we go, okay, try better next time. And next time comes and it's not that much better. And we've been struggling to kind of go, what's the right way to hold them accountable, right? To make sure that they realize that we're not giving them this homework or we're not wanting them to get along with their host family in the case of the inbound, just because we want to make them have to work harder or because we want to make their lives worse. There's reasons, methods behind the madness. And so we haven't really officially implemented this, but what we're floating, and so we'd be open to hearing certainly your feedback on this, is a 3-strike policy. And so it'd be 3 strikes with a caveat of 3 pieces of feedback as well. So let me give you an example. Suzanne, shows up for her homework assignment and, isn't prepared. It's very clear that she hasn't done her homework. She knows 5 words of the 25 she's supposed to know. The first piece is feedback, because maybe she's used to getting to hand stuff in at school late all the time, and there's really been no repercussions. She just does it. The teacher is just, okay, I'll knock off 5%, no big deal. So this might be one of the first times where, we're kind of saying you basically failed the assignment. So our feedback conversation might be, next time you come for the homework assignment, like this is unacceptable that you showed up unprepared. Every kid is busy. All of you outbounds are dealing with a lot of stuff. So the excuse of it's been busy isn't going to float. Sorry. You got to do better. Next time, it'll be a strike if you're not prepared for the next one. So if the same thing happens again, we're giving you the feedback, giving you the chance to do better, learn from the mistake, which is what we want all of our kids to do. And if you don't learn from the mistake, then it's a strike. And so as you can imagine, what that would mean is it's sort of like they can make mistakes basically 6 times. And if it got grave enough, we would say after that 3rd strike, you're going home. Because we've not only told you you've done something wrong, but we've even given you the feedback. We've worked on a bit of a development plan. Okay, what stopped you from getting your homework done the first time? What can we do to make sure you get it done this time, right? And we feel like through that, part of our job is to help these kids become even better kids, right? None of us expect the students inbound or outbound to show up perfect. But what we want to see is improvement, right? So, little Judy McNeil from Estonia comes up to my meeting and she's on her phone the entire meeting. I'm going to pull her aside and say, hey, not cool, buddy. This is your first feedback conversation. I don't want to see your phone out at meetings anymore. I want you to engage. I want you to be a good ambassador. If she comes back to the next meeting and has her phone out the whole time, there's the strike because I gave her the feedback. Now I need to see improvement. Okay. Again, we haven't implemented this. We haven't sent emails to like our inbounds to say we're doing this, but it's kind of a soft idea that we're currently floating because we're noting that, again, there's no real consequences when they don't really follow through. And so we're not really doing them any favors, I don't think, by not helping them develop throughout their year, other than kind of chance that they're going to get better at something, right? So In the interest of time, we'll keep moving forward, but I would appreciate hearing your feedback on that, either in the chat or you can message us privately and just let us know, like, are you in favor of something like that? Do you think that's, way too out of bounds? Like, some feedback would be good. So feel free to shoot that to us. You can even, text it to us, and just let us know what you think. And if we don't get any really strong resistance to it, I guess. I think we will tell the outbounds, so this coming year of outbounds, as well as the inbounds, that hey, this is the policy. And the nice thing we feel is that by doing it both with inbounds and outbounds, when they're talking, there's no sort of like, oh, you don't have to worry about this thing. It's like, no, everybody is being sort of held to the same standards, and we feel like that'll create some consistency. All right. So again, provide your feedback if you like. We would like to hear kind of what you think. Okay. Two more quick things, I think, before we get into the outbound program. The first one is just that we have the YEO and YEC toolkit that we've been working on over the years and developing it, trying to make sure it's up to date, and we're really trying to make sure it's a helpful tool. If you don't know either what it is or how to find it, let us know. You can scan that QR code and bookmark it, or we can just send you the link. Either way is fine. But that's kind of your first go-to when you have a question about how we do something in the district, why we do it, where to find something. I would say always start with the toolkit. And then if you're not sure, kind of reach out to the appropriate person in order to get the answer you're looking for. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that, the vote of confidence. That's awesome. Okay. Oops. And okay, I think last thing here is just, I would say along with sort of the toolkit, it is our big piece that kind of helps helps keep everything together. So that stores all of your students' really important data. It's where you file their reports, all sorts of other things. We'll have some more training on that. We're not going to cover it tonight, but there's lots of stuff in there that you're going to want to know kind of how to use it and navigate it. So if this is completely foreign to you, let me know. But if it's something that you are already familiar with, then that's good. And you just want to make sure that you know kind of what's there, and what's available to you. All right. Okay, on to club commitments. Ross, you want to
chime in for 1 second on the
Sure.
thing?
Sure. Yeah.
Please let us know if you're having issues with that, because not everybody has the same level of access. So I might think, oh, you just do this, this, and this, and it's all easy. But that's because I'm a district chair and I have different access level. So let us know if I say, oh, you do A, B, C, and you go, there's no A, Ross, you're an idiot. Just let me know and we'll work through that.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Ross. And then do you want to just stay unmuted because do you want to talk about the club commitments or do you want me to?
I can talk about club commitments. Yeah, this is the saying that your club is willing to host an inbound in the coming year. So that's the 26-27 year. You're already committed to this year. and you've already paid, your club has already paid their fee and that inbound, all that good stuff in the ski conference. So we need to know by the interview time if you're going to take an inbound so that we can work out the school board reciprocity, because depending on what school board you're in, they are either nice and give us some flexibility in whether or not they the inbound and the outbound match in a 1 year time frame or over a 3 year time frame. They're all a little different. So we just need to know going into the interviews who's on board for the year that those kids that we're interviewing are going to be going out, because we got to send one away before we can take one in. So that's why we're working a year ahead. We've upped the fees a little bit this year because all costs go up, and especially next year, the fees for being in Central States are going up on a per student basis by $50 US. So that's about $500 Canadian, right? So after the tariffs, so that's why that's gone up a bit. And there's always inflation, and kids eat a lot. um, uh, in um, in the club commitment document, you just say who you think your YEO and YEC are going to be. I mean, if that changes over the time frame, that's not a big deal. You just kind of give me, you promise to have an YEO and an YEC for that year, and you commit to paying the fee, and if and you commit to paying the students allowance while they're there and having host families for them, and you also, unfortunately, if you can't find host families, you also have committed to uh, transferring the allowance portion from your club to whoever ends up hosting your kid, because we've already committed, so they're coming, so we got to fix that. That's called a rescue. So there'll be that. If you sign on, there is that financial commitment that you're agreeing to. And for we've all the clubs here have done that for years, so it's not a real big surprise. So, did I miss anything, Kirk?
I don't think so. The last thing, just this point here, that I would just add is that I know it can seem appealing to some clubs to just want to send an outbound because it's a little bit less intimidating, perhaps, than taking an inbound. I know taking an inbound is obviously a lot of work. You're doing all this stuff, and so some clubs have been like, "Oh, well, can we just send outbounds? Like, is that okay?" Rather than take an inbound. And I know I'm kind of not. I'm preaching a little bit to the choir in this call specifically, but A, since it's being recorded, I'll just mention it, and B, because I think it's still relevant in case anyone's talking to other Rotarians in clubs that maybe aren't involved. It is okay for like a year to just send an outbound and not take an inbound. But what you have to remember is that you're asking another club to accept your kid that you're wanting to send out, but then your club isn't accepting anyone. So it can create a little bit of a problem where you can imagine if 55 clubs in District 6330 wanted to send outbounds because they had interested kids, obviously that'd be a great problem to have. But the real big issue is then we're asking 55 clubs around the world to take in kids, and only 7 of our clubs are willing to take in a kid from their countries. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, and that's why even though some clubs do say, "Can I just send an outbound?" That's why we're like, "Well, no, we would really like you to take in an inbound as well because we need that reciprocity to kind of level out at the end of the day."
I mean, we have been really lucky because of our association with Central States. There are, for reasons I don't understand, a bunch of places within Central States. There are clubs that will take inbounds and not send kids. So we have that sort of space in the matrix to be able to send out a few more than we take in through our district. But it's not we can't get a huge imbalance, as Kirk says, because it just doesn't work that way. It is a reciprocal program throughout the world.
Sorry, I jumped ahead here. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ross. So another thing I wanted to quickly mention is that Mark introduced himself as the YEO for St. Mary's, which he is, but he's also kind of a pseudo member or like a ninja member, kind of silent member of the district committee. And so, first of all, he used to be the inbound coordinator, but what he's doing for us now is he's actually working on recruiting other clubs in the district into the program. So we've identified a couple of clubs that we think are interested, that might be kind of easy to get into the program, and he's working with them. But I wanted to highlight that because you might be hearing about him going around the district to different clubs and saying, "Hey, let's get in the program." He's going to be working with some clubs who have been in recently and have recently stepped out. He's going to be eventually touching base with some that just maybe have never done the program, but we're just trying to build up interest and get some engagement. He's got like an awesome presentation that he's going to go around. So if you know of any clubs, Shirley's out and about and she's talking to a Rotarian from, I don't know, Meaford, and they go, "Oh yeah, that sounds really cool, this exchange thing." Connect with us, particularly Mark, but if you don't have Mark's email, just any of us, and say, "Hey, send Mark to Meaford. They want to know more." And Mark will, has been really graciously offering to go around to different clubs in the district and make those presentations, and kind of seize that moment rather than kind of hearing, "Yeah, well, we might be interested." And then, because of, everybody just having a lot to do, we never really follow up with it. So Mark has agreed to do that, which is fantastic because we would love to see this program grow. And we know that one of the easiest ways to grow it, and maybe one of the most sustainable ways, is to get more clubs involved. We can't really most clubs aren't going to take more than one inbound at a time. And so if we want more inbounds and outbounds, we basically need more clubs committed to the program. And so Mark has agreed to do that, which is fantastic. So, okay. All right, on to the outbound program. So Suzanne, take it away. Just tell me when you need me to move slides, by the way.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. You can flip to the next one, Kirk. So basically just touching base for your YEO and YE committee roles, basically for a huge chunk of you guys. So the first step is recruiting your outbound candidates, which should be happening basically right now, or have already started actually months ago. A big thing that we're really trying to promote is to actually start promoting the program and getting candidates honestly in the spring is the biggest thing, because ultimately the applications are going to come out on September 1st. And if those kids haven't had a chance to really talk to their parents, figured out financially different things, it's a little bit more difficult versus if they have already talked to them and talked with the parents early spring, early summer, they've had a chance to really think it through and figure out the process of it and whether it's going to be for them or is it maybe in a year from now, sort of thing. So I really strongly encourage everybody to really start recruiting as early as possible. Not saying you can't recruit now, though, by any means. There still is lots of time. So they help our outbounds with their application. So once you get your recruits, you are responsible for helping with their application as well. Ultimately, the application will come to Elizabeth and I, but when it comes to us, it should be not perfect, but a majority of it should be completed, and we shouldn't have to be dealing with typos and making sure that their last names are all in capitals, making sure 6330 is at the top of every page. So it's catching those little things that is going to save us, because we are looking at like last year we looked at 17 applications. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but they are extremely time consuming. So if we can eliminate just those little things that we are having to constantly correct, then that's going to help for everybody. So then you can be involved in the outbounds in the club as well. So get them involved with your club. They can come to meetings. They should be going to meetings with you guys. So really getting them involved with your club and showing them what your Rotary Club is into would be amazing. And then supply your outbound club with banners and pins. So all of our exchange students do get their red blazers. And so they love those pins. So if you can have pins with your club, that would be great. Or some clubs still have banners as well. So if you can supply them with a couple of banners or pins to take across with them, that would be great. And then ask your outbounds also to present to your club when they return. You can also ask them to present before they go as well, because they're actually going to be presenting to us at training weekends about their town, their community, about their life and their family. So that's something that they could also present before they go. And it really helps with their public speaking, getting them out and really chatting with people. So you can have them present before and after ultimately. Go ahead, Kirk.
They're also free labor for your fundraising activities.
Huge. The outbounds are really keen to actually be involved in Rotary. So if you have any projects going on, they are great for that. Get their families involved too is really helpful. It could be help with future host families, help with future Rotarians. So get them all involved basically with it. So lots of helpful hints for recruitment are in the YEO YEC toolkit. If you have any questions though, feel free to reach out to Elizabeth or myself, and we can help you with that. I know I presented in Hanover High School. I'm part of the Hanover Rotary Club. We presented last year, and we ended up getting a handful of applicants just from going into a French class, literally, and spoke with them for an hour and just did a quick presentation to them, and really got some great applicants that way. So putting it, like Don Moore puts it on the announcements, and he gets them that way really easily. So there's lots of different ways that you can put it out there, but if you need anything, please reach out. So outbound program selection. So the big part is that we do say your outbound student is an ambassador of your club and the community. And we really emphasize that they're ambassadors. They will hear that through all their training. For that, they still must be between the ages of 15 and a half and 18 and a half by August 1st of next year. Older students are really hard to place, and there's a lot of restrictions with the countries that they cannot be overage for that. It really limits the amount that they can apply for. Academic requirements, they have to be in the top half of their class. That does have to be signed off in the application that they're in the top half of their class as well. Ontario students, so for you guys, must not have graduated to be a primary candidate. So we do have students that do apply that already have graduated. They become an alternate automatically. That being said, we usually do send our alternates, but it's definitely a conversation that we need to have with those students who have graduated. So our inbounds to receive free tuition at our schools, the outbounds must be enrolled in as a full-time student for the year that they return. So we're basically expecting that student to come home and be back into school. Medical requirements, they must have or be willing to get all required vaccines unless there's a medical reason. So that's something you should really emphasize now when they're doing their initial application. We had a student last year that it came out that she was not willing to get any vaccines after she had gone through the whole interview stage. And unfortunately, we are not in support of that unless there is a medical reason for it. So it's talking to them now about it and talking to the parents about it, because that's where it actually came out, was that mom was not in support of her having vaccines. So we unfortunately did not accept her.
I can't remember. I'm just gonna go back to that top half of the class thing. The Central States outbound coordinator is getting fussier about that. So sort of somewhat marginal students might not be accepted. So
yeah, we're finding that basically they're getting it signed off at the school to say, sure, this kid is in the top half of the class. And then they're looking, because they still have to submit the report cards. So we're looking at the report cards going like, there's no way they're at the top of their class, basically. So it's really making sure that that is the case, that if you do have a child with some lower grades, please speak with us and we can figure out whether they will meet the requirement basically for that. And we can go through that with you though, for sure.
I mean, it might come within a year or two that there'll be a GPA thing you have to do a conversion for, which is really annoying, but that's what it might come to.
So another thing we talked about, I'll just step in here, and then Suzanne will continue, is kind of the candidates that we're looking for. And the simple way to put it is we sort of jokingly call them candidatus commonus and candidatus exemplarus. And essentially we're saying like there's the kind of all too common candidate. And really the way I would describe this is like, this is a kid who, he's probably a nice kid, you know, nothing wrong with him per se, but he's kind of mediocre. He's kind of just average, never really even dreamed of traveling very much. But you know what? Mark, his dad went on exchange years ago. And so, you know, it's his turn. It's his turn to do it. It's like his birthright. But he would rather be, you know, maybe playing video games or something, not really going on exchange. But when his application comes forward, of course, his dad's a Rotarian and, you know, he's in the club. So we kind of feel beholden that we have to let him go on exchange. Another situation is just that, you know, Jeremy's a really shy kid, right? He's always been really, really shy. And Heather, his mom, comes to us and says, this exchange is going to be great. I did a college semester abroad and it totally took me out of my shell. It's going to be the same for Jeremy. So we send Jeremy on exchange because he's too damn shy. So we send him on one of the most stressful experiences a teenager can go through to get him out of his shell. And so, you know, this doesn't seem too harmful, but imagine that host family that's stuck with this kid that, you know, would rather be in his room and is sad about missing his parties with his friends back home, and so on and so forth, right? So you can imagine not the best ambassador that we're sending abroad, right? We can do better than that. And that's where the candidatus exemplarus comes in. This is a student that, first and foremost, they want to go on exchange. They want to go for their own reasons, not because someone else thinks it would be good for them, right? In many cases, these are the ones that reach out to us initially because they're the ones that were researching the program in the first place, not necessarily their mom and dad, right? They tend to be quite involved. As Suzanne said, they're top half of their class. They're really these go-getter type kids. That's the kind of kid we're looking for. Now, I've had a little bit of resistance to this, and that people have been like, "Whoa, so you just want these perfect kids that, you know, you don't want anyone that's got any problems. You don't want anyone that's not perfect." And we're saying, no, that's not it. But we want to see that spark of of sort of resilience. We want to see that spark of ambassadorship. They want to be, they want to be out and about talking to members of the club. They can carry on a conversation with an adult, even if it's a bit nerve-wracking for them. We want to see those sparks of like, this kid's going to be awesome on exchange, and not so much we hope this kid's going to be awesome on exchange. We're praying and crossing our fingers that they're going to be a good exchange student, right? So that's something, a framework we want you to think about as you're accepting and getting inquiries from candidates. I can give you an example. In Strathroy, we did a thing at the high school. We had one kid show up, and unfortunately, it was my mom told me I should come here and check this out. And so we thought, okay, well that's not always an instant non-starter, right? So we said, oh well, tell us why you would want to go on exchange. I don't really know. Like my mom just said it might be cool and I should check it out, and said, okay, well, what questions do you have? I don't really have any. Where would you want to go? I don't know. Maybe like France. Like there was no interest on her side that this was like an exciting thing, something that really got her going, and that she had any interest in it. So that's an example where she was a nice kid. She was polite. She had a little conversation with us and stuff, but there was just not really anything there that made us go, this kid's going to be an awesome ambassador. So just be thinking about that as we move forward through this kind of selection piece of the outbound program.
Perfect. And another thing, we're not saying that you can't take a shy kid by any means with that, because we've had some amazing, more quiet kids that have been the most successful exchange students. We had one last year that went to Japan, and Josh had the absolutely most amazing year, but he was a more reserved kid. But he definitely showed interest in it. He was the one that was pushing for it. And so that really said a lot for us. So shy kids are okay, but it's just making sure that they are in for the right reason. So the Outbound Program selection, here's some key things that we're really looking for. So personality and character. Do they have a sense of adventure? Are they willing to learn a new language and culture? Are they curious about the world? Are they involved in service activities? Are they grateful for the opportunity that they have? That it's really being appreciative and wanting to seek more, basically. Students' motivation is a huge one. That is it mom and dad that's applying? Is it mom that went on an exchange and now she's really pushing for the child to go? So whose idea was it really to go on to us? Are they hoping to use Rotary as a travel agent, that they just want to go and they just want to see the world and that's it? Are they hoping to get out? What are they hoping to get out of their exchange? And financial is another big one that that hasn't been changed. So this year we are looking at the cost of being $10,000. It has gone up this year. It does every year. So does the family understand what the cost is actually going to be for their exchange? Will they need financial assistance? We do offer scholarships that we can do for our district, and we can talk through that with people for sure. So if you have somebody that does really balk at the cost of it, we don't want that to be an issue. So chat with us and we can fill them in more about the scholarships. Perfect. So ultimately, you want to think of it, what kind of candidates are you going to be accepting? And what would you be excited to for a student to live with you for the next 3 months? So when you're interviewing one of your outbound students, think of, would this be a student that, not that just, yeah, sure, I can host them, they'd be fine in my house, but would you be excited to have them in your house? How would it look in your house? Would you kind of regret it at the end? Would you be hesitant? So those are some red flags that we really want you to think about, because we are going to be sending these over to another host family, and we don't want them to have any doubts or have any issues with that. So really think of that when you are doing your outbound interviews. So for the, oh, go ahead.
I was going to jump in there because we just talked about the fee briefly. If you have some people kind of going, $10,000 is a lot of money, break it down.
Mm-hmm.
An exchange is about 40 weeks, right? Something like that. 10,000 divided by 40 weeks. That's not a lot of money per week. And they're getting room and board and tuition for that, and a flight and insurance and some really amazing training. So in the overall scheme of things, it's a fairly inexpensive program. And compared to other, like the fully paid exchange programs, we're still less than half the price for a lot of them.
Ross, do you want to talk about why it's increased this year specifically so it's increased by about 1,000 from last year? Do you want to speak to why that is, or do you want to?
Again, it's the partly the central states fees are going up, the cost of inflation, and we are looking at switching travel agents. And the new travel agent has a basically hold your hand through the visa process service, among other things. They really do provide a whole lot more service, but it's a much bigger fee, surprise, than what the current travel agent offers. Our current travel agent doesn't charge a lot, but they don't do anything either. They tell you what websites to look at to figure out your visa, and you're kind of on your own. If you're going to Germany, that's no big deal, but if you're going to Italy, that's a big problem. So, and we've had a number of parents struggle with the visa process on their own. So we're looking at working with a company called It's Your World Travel, whose sole business is travel for exchange students. And the people that run it like really care about the kids and provide a service that is really quite good. It's just our hesitation at the moment is the fee is fairly high, and it's in American dollars. So we're kind of going, are we ready to make this jump or not? And we haven't made that decision yet. It's the summer. We get to Grand Rapids and go, oh my God, we made it. But then there's still so much work to do. But
I think it's also worth mentioning that we did send an email to the past 2 years of Outbound and their parents, just saying like, we're thinking of switching. What was your experience with Nexian? Do you think you would have benefited from having a bit more of a hand-holding service for the visa process? So we didn't just decide it ourselves. We asked, and the majority of people that came back, there were one or two that were like, oh, our visa was easy. Everyone else came back and said, yeah, some assistance would have been really nice. And then we asked them, now the tricky part is we said, what dollar amount would you put to that service? Like, do you think that's worth $1,000? Do you think that's worth? Most of them said somewhere between 200 and 500. So, we're trying to manage that, but most of the parents did come back saying, yeah, we would appreciate. I heard about 30 responses or so, which is pretty good, and most of them did say, yeah, we would have liked some kind of assistance. Simply because Nexian didn't really provide any, and the kids are kind of on their own. Obviously, Suzanne and Elizabeth have been amazing, like helping them, but it is a lot of work that Suzanne and Elizabeth are going on embassy and consulate websites and walking them through the application process. It starts to become really a full-time job, which is a lot of work. So. And the other thing we should
emphasize that too, that right now, for instance, like visa, like when they say Grand Rapids happens, well, this is the worst time as outbound coordinators right now, because we are going through the visa process for majority of our countries. And ultimately it can change is the biggest thing, that just because we did the same thing last year for Brazil, it can change in the meantime. It can change every 6 months, essentially. So it's something that It's Your World is on top of. They have a visa person that can say, nope, here's the process, here's how you do it, and they walk you through it. Yeah. Versus Elizabeth and I are constantly having to work on it. I feel like right now it is a full-time job to get our students visas done, basically, and some countries are really picky with it and some are not, and it's been a challenging season even already, just getting their visas prepared for them. It's extremely time consuming, so it would make our lives 100% easier, 100% that way. And I'm not an expert on visas, versus It's Your World is 100% an expert on it.
Mm-hmm. The other thing worth mentioning is that the way our fee structure is set up is that we do offer a refund to parents if there's a travel pool that exceeds a certain amount, right? So we pool all the money together, and if the cost of all the flights and insurance ends up being less than we anticipated, because we aim kind of high, then the parents do get some of that money back. And in the past year, the parents got about $1,000 back each kid. So that can be good. So I don't want to give anybody false hope. I wouldn't go around telling your parents, you're going to get $1,500 back, no biggie. But but yeah, there is an opportunity that if we overshot and it really ends up being more like 9,000 or 9,500, we do refund the parents some of that money, so that it's not quite so expensive.
Last thing I'm going to say is that fundraising is also an option. Like kids can do fundraising, and we can assist with some of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Suzanne.
Perfect. So the application. So right now the preliminary application is in your hands. You can be going through that with them right now. And then the next step will be your club interview. How you choose to do your club interview is up to you. But if you do need some assistance with that, if you do need some questions that you can be asking them, please let me know and I can send you the questions that I've used in the past. But you're interviewing also the parents or the guardians as well, keeping that in mind with that. So please make sure that the parents or guardians are also there so they know what's going on with it. The next step is the Central States Rotary Youth Exchange application. That is the online application as well as the supplementary. That will come out on September 1st. Unfortunately, we do not have, it is not available till September 1st. I wish it was, but so as soon as it comes out, then I can send it to you. So once you do your interview and you have accepted that child and want them to move on to the next step, if you can send Elizabeth and I their contact information and say, yeah, we interviewed them, here's their contact information, we'll make sure as soon as it comes out, whether it's September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, it's usually the first week of September, we will forward that immediately to them, and then you'll be also attached to it so that you'll see that they did receive it. The next step is the district interviews, which are taking place in October this year. We'll go over the dates in a little bit though, and we do welcome you to come to district interviews as well. So the application, I'm assuming nothing has really changed on it this year. I have not seen the online version of it yet. From what I've heard from Grand Rapids, there won't be anything too crazy for it. But if you have any questions about any of the portions of the application, please let me know. Key part is that as soon as they are showing interest and you have gone through your interview with them, get them to book their medical and their dental appointments immediately. That seems to be one of the hardest ones to actually get in some communities because we do require it to have it part of the application. So if they can have it for the middle of September, the first week of October, that they can have that filled out then by their medical professional or dentist, then that would be great. But if you have any other questions for this, please let us know. Check that they also do have their passport. That's one thing too, that they will require a passport that isn't going to expire while they're gone, and it should be even a year afterwards. So they can start the process of doing that, as well as a long form birth certificate. You can usually get one in a couple of weeks, but they do require the long form that does have the parents' names listed on it, not just the little card one anymore. So there's that.
I think it's worth mentioning too, Suzanne, that Suzanne and Elizabeth come up with an application walkthrough document that is like 12 pages long. That sounds daunting, but it is like literally goes over step by step everything the kids need to do. So I'm going to speak as the past outbound coordinator. It is kind of frustrating to get applications that have some pretty basic stuff not checked off, because we know that means the kids weren't checking this stuff. In some cases, the YEOs weren't helping them with it. So we really encourage the kids to read that. And in fact, in terms of we're talking about building up these kids' ability to solve problems and stuff, I would recommend you read that document yourself. You don't have to read it as in-depth as the kids, but then if they ask you a question like, hey, what am I supposed to put for this field? Direct them to the document and be like, I know that's in the document, so I need you to read it first. And if you can't find it, then I'll help you. But try to encourage them to try to be self-sufficient, because they put a lot of work into making sure that document is complete, comprehensive, informative. So then when kids just don't read it because it's easier just to reach out and ask, we really want them to be making that effort first so that it's saving Elizabeth and Suzanne time.
And we are going to make it really clear this year that we do expect you as YEOs and YECs to go through the application before it comes to Elizabeth and I. So if we get that application and there is lots of typos in it, their letter hasn't been fully read and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, it's not in sentences, it's point form. If there is anything that is handwritten, I will not accept it, other than a medical signature or dental signature, things like that is okay. But if there is anything else that is handwritten, I will not accept it. if there is things on there that should have been caught before it comes to Elizabeth and I, like 6330 at the top of the page, their last name is not all in capitals. I will immediately be sending it back to you guys, unfortunately, and to the student for them to correct, because we found that we are ultimately going back and forth really with all of these students with some finicky little things, but those little things really add up really quick in our time. That we are volunteers just the same as you guys are, and it's really tough when you're going through, like I'm expecting 20 plus applicants this year. So to go through all of those applications and be nitpicking about, geez, you haven't filled in it properly, you haven't put your email address in, you haven't added a +1 in front of your phone numbers. Those things are things that I'm really hoping that you guys can really pick out. And if you want us to go over it with you, then that's okay. We are actually going to create I'm going to call it a perfect application. It'll probably be for Elizabeth or myself. And so you can actually go through and kind of match up with what it's supposed to look like. And we'll point out some common mistakes on it. So look for that coming in the next month or so for that. But if you do have any questions, absolutely reach out to us. We don't mind in the least, but we really do need to put the emphasis on that we need you guys to also help with catching the first little things, and then we can get the other bigger things. So one of the really big things that we are changing this year, and it wasn't on the list on the last one, was country selections. So this is a new thing that we've been talking to other districts about. And instead of having the students actually number their countries that they want to go to, we aren't going to give them any numbers at all. They aren't going to have the opportunity to actually rank the countries that they want to go to. In the past, they were given a list and they basically just put 1 to 30 on it, and then they could refuse countries as well. This year, they're going to get a list. They will not be able to rank them at all. It'll just be information basically on those countries, their requirements, if there's any medical issues, if they will not take a vegetarian, age restrictions. And all of our students have always got that in the past. So they will be getting that. And then they will get an application, part of the application that is a questionnaire. It's a large questionnaire that will go through everything from personality questions, dietary questions, lots of different things basically for them to fill out. And then there's going to be a group of us that are on the district that are going to go through, and we are going to be the ones that are actually selecting the countries that we recommend to Central States for them. We're really taking away the part of students basically coming in and saying, I only want to go to Germany. That is where I only want to go. And versus a student that comes in and says, I will go anywhere because I just want to experience the world. I just want to experience a new culture, that they're not really focused on just that one country. That we're seeing it more and more, that we have students that are coming in and say, I only want to go to Germany. And then when they don't get Germany, whether it's for an age restriction, mental health restriction, or sometimes they just don't get that top country, then they pull out of the program. And those are the students we do not want. So if you have a student that is ultimately saying, I only want to go to Japan, I only want to go to Brazil, those are not students that we want, to be quite honest. We want a student that is willing to ultimately go anywhere. And based on our expertise, that I was an exchange student, I've hosted exchange students, I sent my son on an exchange, and then the rest of the district committee has done basically the same thing. We have a wealth of knowledge that we feel that we can pick the countries and that is best for that student. So that's going to be a new big one that we are working on. They will be able to refuse, I'm going to use certain countries, but it must be for valid reasons, is the big one. And we still will be looking at it too, that, you know what, if you have a family that lives in Germany, you're not going to Germany. If mom went on an exchange to Mexico, you're not going to Mexico. If you have a sibling that went to Finland, you are not going to Finland. And those are examples of my family, literally. So we will be doing the same thing with that as well. So that's definitely a huge change. We are going to be walking through the students, their parents, through that process ultimately. They won't see that list until their application is actually complete. It is going to be the very last thing ultimately that they do see for it. So, but you can talk to them about it. If they have questions, once again, I don't mind explaining to them what the process will be and why we're doing it. Feel free to reach out though, basically for it. So the application, complete everything correctly as possible, follow the instructions and pay attention to the details. Elizabeth and I are really nitpicky. Central States, when it goes to Megan, who gets it afterwards, is 100 times more pickier than we are even, that she finds things that we have missed. So please, please, please be really, really picky. Like when I say nothing can be written, handwritten, nothing can be in pen unless it's like a signature, a stamp, the medical and dental, sometimes we can have a little bit in there. But if anything else is handwritten, I will not accept it. Absolutely not. So if there is anything like that in there, nix it right off for them. Basically, we're putting that you guys are responsible for viewing those student letters as well. We know we have the students that fill out a letter and then the parents do. You don't be expecting, read through the parent one. They're going to do their own thing likely anyways. It's the student one that I really want you to look through though. And if they're just literally just answering the question, very simple, very generic, then send it back to them and say, do better. Because ultimately this is going to be the first thing that a host family likely reads about them and they want to know about it, about them. So go through that letter really, be picky with them for it. Grammar, I know it might not be the first language of the person that is reading it, but sentences are really tough for some kids this year. So go through that with them and ship it back to them if it isn't that great. You can also review their online and their paper portion of their application. The more people that look at it, ultimately the better of catching errors for sure. Really follow that online guide too, that you can really go step by step through the guide as you're filling out the application and really get the kids to do that because it makes a world of difference. And start as early as possible and work as quickly as possible. There is a tight turnaround absolutely on it. So really emphasize those dates though, because we aren't really flexible on them. And we'll give you guys the dates in a little bit. So we are going to do an application information session or help session on September 15th as tentative for the students, the parents, for you if you want to join as well. So that will be happening for it. Where are you going, Kirk? There we go. The deadline for reviewed, corrected, and highlighted completed applications is going to be October 15th. So the interviews are earlier this year. We typically do them in November. They are going to be a week earlier this year for that. So we need all of the applications finished and sent to Elizabeth and I, checked off, everything is good by October 15th. That it's basically a week before the interviews because we are required to print off 4 copies of everything for our interviews. And if there's anything, little minor things that need to be changed, that gives us a day to quickly go through it basically before we send it to the printers. So October 15th is their deadline to have everything to us. If somebody comes to you and they say, our doctor's appointment I can't get till October 20th, that's the earliest appointment we could possibly get. That's okay. Let us know and emphasize that everything else must be completed. They can literally have their medical form pretty much filled out. They can have all their vaccination history all filled out. They can have almost everything filled out on that form, ready for that doctor to fill in, and we can work with that until they go to the doctor for it. So, but let us know is the key part, okay? So the applications. Ross, do you want to talk about this one for host family referrals?
Sure. Something else new for this year. Host families are one of our biggest stumbling blocks and why we've lost clubs participating in the last little while. So we got a new plan. The outbound student must provide a name that is guaranteed. Somebody who's committed and willing to be the first host family. Yeah, if you don't, if the kid can't give you a host family, then they're not going on exchange. There are, obviously if there are valid reasons that, I mean, they live in a favela and all of their family are crackheads, then, we'll have to come up with something. But
It doesn't have to be a family member.
it doesn't have to be a family member. I mean, it can't be their creepy Uncle Joe with only one eye who lives down a dark dirt road and nobody's seen him for 6 months. That's not going to work. It has to be a host family that we can, as soon as we have their name and, we've talked, say, hey, how are you doing? You agreed to do this. Here's the application. And we're going to have the application done and this person ready to be a host family before we send their application to Central States. So by interviews, we're going to know who the first host family is. By the time their application gets to Central States, we're going to have that host family approved so that we know who the first host family is that coming year. I know that first host family is the big hurdle. And if you have that already, then your inbound paperwork is so much easier, right? So it sort of all falls together. If that's the outbound's parents, fine, we're good with that. Their kid's giving up a bed. They may as well fill it with somebody else. But we're not saying they have to. What we are saying, is they have to find somebody because we're running out of options. I mean, Rotarians aren't getting any younger. It's harder to make those connections because, let's face it, it's younger people who are mostly younger people who are willing to host. Not always, but sometimes. Now, if you're, the world's best YEO and you already have 3 host families lined up, we'll work with that. But, I mean, the likelihood is you don't really have your first host family lined up. And this is going to put that there. And then you have some time to find host family 2 and 3. And we're hoping that, the kid arrives and you bring them into your club and your club is, oh, these kids are amazing. This kid's a fantastic exchange. And so host family 2 and 3 just are easy to find because it's a great kid and your first host family is saying how wonderful the experience is. So that's the new plan. We got a lot of new plans this year. We're just trying to make everything better, easier for YEOs. And hopefully sort of a little less work. I think that was all I had to say about that one.
Perfect. So district interviews are earlier this year. They are going to take place on October 25th. Location we're still working on, but it is hopefully likely going to be in Exeter area. So please make sure that your students and their parents do know that it is October 25th. It is mandatory that they are there as well as their parents or guardian must be at district interviews. So they will be interviewed by a panel of 3 Rotarians and 1 Rotex or 1 Rebound. Some of you have probably already been on one of those panels, and we appreciate that. And then the students and parents will meet with the outbound coordinators with Elizabeth and I also that day as well, just to go over some last minute little things. If there's anything that absolutely needs to be changed on their application, we can go through that with them as well. They also will meet with Roseanne and a couple of the other Rotarians they will meet with as well that day.
And we'll have the inbounds at that as well. And at the moment, the plan is for them to stay overnight. If necessary, they'll all be in Elizabeth's basement. You volunteered.
Fees and commitment. So families typically will pay in 3 installments, but you transfer a check. First one is due by December 31st, then February 28th, and then April 30th. If financial issues are a concern that they can't do that quite large of a chunk, please reach out to us or our treasurer Favel as well, and we can break it down a little bit more to make it a little bit easier for them if that helps at all, but we can assist them. Training conferences are mandatory. This is something that if you could really talk to them about this, even during your first meeting with them and their first interview with them, they are absolutely mandatory. I don't care if prom is that weekend. I don't care if they have a dance recital that weekend. It is mandatory. No ifs, ands, or buts. Parents will also be joining us for some of those sessions. It is also mandatory for the parents or guardian to be on those expected training sessions as well, whether it is the in-person one or the online one. So really emphasize the importance that the students understand this, and they will get the dates ahead of time, so it won't be a surprise, it won't be sprung up on them. But they are absolutely mandatory. There is almost nothing that would let them off of it ultimately. So district interviews will take place in October. Great Expectations will be March. Reaching New Heights will be in April, and then the summer conference in Grand Rapids is July. And then we also, in between those ones, also do the monthly online training sessions. New this year as well, we are going to do one in December, and it will be kind of a meet and greet for the students to get to know each other. And we'll go over the basics of the program again, and we'll do some basic training with them in December. Then we'll go full steam ahead starting January, February, May, and June.
Conference dates are as much as possible already in the calendar that is accessible through the toolkit.
Yep. Through. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne. We'll dive into the inbound program now. This photo's getting a little bit outdated, but I'll update it eventually. So first thing is that at our Welcome Home conference, that's going to be, we'll talk about dates in a minute, but it's going to be end of September. Last year we did a YEO and YEC's reception, aka a reception for the YEOs and YECs, just to get a chance to like meet each other, hang out a bit, because we know that, I mean, we meet online a couple times a year, of course, but we don't really get a chance to mingle in person. So since many of you are driving a student up for the conference, we thought, why not treat you to some wine and cheese and just a chance to really get to know each other. So we're going to be doing that again. Aiden's going to be organizing that. So you're all invited to that. Even if you're a brand new YEC or your YEO, whatever, we would love to have you come to that. Or even just people that might be interested in joining your club's youth exchange committee or district committee. We would love to have you there just to get to fill you in on the program and just also thank you for your commitment to the program. Okay. Conference dates. That first date is wrong. I'm sorry about that, but it just got changed. I just found out about it. So we had a number of students applying for their study permits quite late this year. And so we know that most of our kids will not be here by September 5th to 7th. So far, I've had 2 kids tell me. I just found out today that my Strathroy inbound just got his, and Mark's from St. Mary's has his. Otherwise, everyone, as far as I know, is still waiting. Now, this has happened in the past, and what's happened is that within the next couple of weeks, everyone gets theirs and it's all good, but we really feel like there's going to be a few kids that are going to be late, and given we only have about 7 inbounds, it doesn't make sense to run the conference with only, a few inbounds. So what we're doing this year is we're going to push the date of that conference to probably the last weekend of September, so the 24th to the 26th, I believe it is, whatever that last weekend is. It'll be at Camp Presqu'île, but it'll be that last weekend of September instead of the 1st, and I will update that in the calendar after this meeting. But otherwise, I believe all the other dates are still correct. So the district interviews is basically we're turning it into also a conference opportunity for the inbound. So they participate in the interviews in terms of the country fair, but then they sleep over as well so that they get a full kind of conference weekend out of it. And then we have the Ski Days conference. This is not yet confirmed, this date. Aiden has reached out to Dean Ruddy, who is with Beaver Valley. There we go, Beaver Valley Ski Club. And so we're just waiting for confirmation from him that those are dates that works, but tentatively that's when that'll be. And then Great Expectations for both inbounds and outbounds is March 6th to 8th. Reaching New Heights, April 24th to 26th. And then our district conference, they really want to have a strong youth focus. And so our inbounds, some rebounds, our outbounds are all going to be invited to that. That's May 28th to 30th. And last but not least, the Central State Summer Conference is July 9 to 12. These are all in the district, the calendar that is in the YEO toolkit. So don't worry too much if you haven't had time to write them all down. Those are all in the toolkit. And again, this last one will be end of September, not beginning. Okay. So some quick kind of important stuff about kind of the YEO and YEC role when it comes to inbounds. Essentially, high level, the YEO is the student's kind of legal guardian or parent, right? The mom or dad. Whereas the youth exchange counselor is really meant to be like a guide or an advisor, kind of the cool aunt or uncle that helps them navigate, making friends, fitting in, getting along with their host family. Not that the YEO doesn't do those things, but the YEO, I would say, is a more fair, balanced representative of both the program and the reputation of the program, as well as taking care of the student. Whereas the YEC is more you're in their court, helping them and kind of representing them and supporting them. Okay. So there's a number of different roles. There's stuff you're doing before the inbound student arrives. There's stuff you're doing when the inbound student arrives. And then there's stuff you're doing ongoing throughout their year. Instead of going through each one of those in detail, I'd really recommend that you take that portion of the toolkit and maybe print that page or two off and then kind of refer to it and make sure that it all makes sense to you. Again, a part of that is that some of you have been doing this for a long time, and I don't want to, make your ears bleed with having to hear me tell you the basics of taking care of an inbound. But for those of you where it's new, take some time to read those pages of the toolkit. I think the big thing really is when the inbound arrives, right? Making sure that they're getting along with their host family in those first couple days, checking in with both the host family and the student to be like, hey, everything going okay? Do you need me to help you go set up a bank account? Let's make sure you get into the school, those kind of basics things to make sure that they're really getting settled in, making sure that they're connected with the school, making sure they get to a host club meeting as soon as possible, right? And making sure they're settling in with their host family. Those are three really important pieces. It's a little bit of that, like starting a new job. You want, if you're the one hiring them, you want them to have a good first impression so that, things start off right. And so that's kind of that role that you're playing, is trying to make that best first impression, and also just getting that FaceTime with the student, right? So the FaceTime, but also spending time on messaging and whatnot to make sure that they're settled and comfortable. So that could be, again, enrolling them in school, getting them their cell phone SIM card if that's going to be part of it, opening a bank account with them. I know a lot of host families do this stuff with them, and that's okay too, but just making sure you're available to assist with that, especially I think for a new host family. You want to remember that a brand new host family, almost they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know what to think about. They don't know what to prep for. They don't know, what's going to come their way. So you can help make that kind of an enjoyable or smooth experience, not just for the student, but also for the host family. Okay. But check out that part of the toolkit and let me know, if you're looking at that thing going, hey, what's this responsibility you've mentioned there? I'm not sure what that means, or I don't know how I do that thing. Let me know, and I'd be happy to set up a separate Zoom where we can kind of walk through that. Okay. So support from the inbound coordinator. One person that's not on the call tonight is Sue Bandine. Her daughter's also getting married on Saturday, as it turns out. So she is in the Niagara region getting all settled for that. But she's kind of the assistant inbound coordinator. She was the inbound coordinator a couple years ago, and she helps me immensely with just trying to keep on top of paperwork and whatnot. And so between the two of us, we're really here to support you with the student. We don't want to micromanage or intervene where we don't need to, but if you're having difficulty with the student, you're not connecting with them, you're struggling with maintaining rules and setting good expectations, we're here for you, right? So whether it's culture shock and language stuff, whether it's they're trying to figure out what tours to go on, they're wanting to travel all over, and you're trying to find out what they can and can't do, insurance claims, really whatever it is, feel free to reach out. We try to respond relatively promptly. Sue is a hell of a lot better at it than I am, I'll tell you that. But either way, usually through a text or a phone call or an email, we'll get back to you. Basically, we know that you're dealing with teenagers in a culture that's not their own, in a family that's not their own. We know stuff comes up, and really all I can urge you to do is just reach out and be like, hey, I could use some advice. What would you do in this scenario? Or this is the course of action I took. What would you recommend, kind of thing. So don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we know, most of you are YEOs and have been for a long time, and YECs, so you know what you're doing. We know that, but we want you to know that we're here if you need some support from us as time goes on with the students. Okay. So I had a quick idea that, we've been bouncing around and we wanted to throw your way. I just said we don't want to step on your toes, and so that's why I want to get your input. There's a multi-district called North Star. There are two districts in kind of Minnesota, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in kind of northern, kind of to the west of us, northwest of it. And one of the things that they have is a host family liaison, and it's different than the inbound coordinator. This person works really just supporting host families. And so we got talking about that, Mark and Ross and I kind of thought that's interesting. And one of the things they talked about was doing regular Zoom meetings for the host families. And it's a chance for the host families to vent. It's a chance for the host families to share ideas. It's a chance for the host families to say, hey, I'm having this issue. What should I do? And someone from the North Star District kind of multi-district committee gives them advice, listens to their suggestions. And so I wanted to float that idea to you, YEOs and YECs. I guess there's two questions I'm asking. One is, do you feel like that would be helpful to your host families if they had, once a month they were allowed to log on and say, gosh, I got this kid. He seems really great, but his host family says the host family comes on and says he's not cleaning up after himself. What do I do? He tells me that his maid in Brazil always cleaned up after him, and that's not something he ever learned. How do I help motivate him without just yelling at him to clean up after himself? So they could share ideas, they could vent a little bit. YEOs and YECs, I think, would be invited as well, so that we're kind of all hearing ideas and strategies. So basically, maybe either a show of hands or thumbs up. Like, is that something you think would be helpful? And the reason I ask is because I don't want to step on your toes. Like, I don't want Heather to think, oh, Kirk doesn't think I can be a YEO. He's got to handle all this stuff. It's more like, would that be helpful, or would that be stepping on your toes? So does anybody have strong opinions either way on that? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up here. Okay. Yeah, Judy, go ahead. Judy and Sherry, go ahead and unmute yourself there. I'll click ask to unmute and see if that, there we go.
Sorry. Are you meaning a chat with the actual host family, or someone that's going in and talking to the
No, sorry. Good question. Yeah. So it would be actually, we'd send the Zoom link to the host families themselves and say, you're welcome to join, as well as you folks too. So, if it's like, we're getting Silver, if it's like, oh, Silver's a nice kid, but God, he stays up till 2 a.m. and then he's cranky in the morning. Like, what do I do? It could be a chance to maybe discuss that with the other host families, maybe get some advice, throw around some strategies. That's kind of what the intention would be, is that the host families themselves would be invited to this.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the other, I guess, piece of it, because Mark brought up a good point. He's like, you realize you're basically going to be doing the same meeting every couple months, because every couple months, you got a whole bunch of brand new host families. And I thought that's a great point. And so one of the things we could do as well, like if in Leslie's club, she has her 3 host families lined up from the get-go, they could be invited to join all year. So even though one of those families might only get the student, they might only be getting Samir in April, maybe they go, well, I'd like to join. I'd like to hear about what families are doing well and how we could make sure that we're a good host family. So I would say whatever host families you have in the funnel, ask them to join. And, I think they're only going to learn, right? I don't see it as a bad thing. So anyway, other thoughts, opinions on that? No? We're seeing what we were initially talking about, Mark and I were maybe doing it once a month. Maybe that's too often, and we could ask for feedback from the parents and say, do you want to do this every other month or whatever? But we know that when kids are, 3-ish months in a family, probably every month is maybe the right tempo, especially when they first switch houses. So it seems like there's pretty positive feedback. So Mark, I think we'll definitely go ahead and get that Zoom link out to you folks. And I mean, we'll see where it goes, right? We'll try it out. And if we get good feedback, we'll keep doing it. If we don't get good feedback, we can stop. So, okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think if I could just add something quickly, I think it's a great idea, especially because with the whole host family struggle, so many of them are new. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of repeats lately. And so I do feel like you're reteaching, having more of those conversations more often, and I think it would be great for them.
Okay.
The handbook is awesome, but I think the conversations are the most important thing, and sharing the experience and the ideas and what they're dealing with is going to be really helpful, especially for those new families.
I think that's a great point. And actually, to that point, we thought it might even be a bit of a selling feature to host families to say, not only do you get club support and the district, but we have these monthly drop-ins where you can, so that might be a selling feature. And I think, Dawn, you had a comment, and maybe Leslie after that as well. I think I saw.
Yeah, I was going to also mention, I have a host family from this past year who's not going to be host this coming year. And they were a fantastic host family with a lot of good ideas. And so maybe if we invite some of our former good host families to kind of sit in and offer some advice to these new families, I think that might be helpful.
I think that's actually a fantastic idea. Yeah, that's a great point. And not even just great host families, but maybe ones that went through some struggles, like had some tough kids that they ended up working well with. Like that would be good too. Yeah, perfect. Leslie, I think I saw you unmuted, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I would just be reiterating what Dawn and Heather mentioned. I think it's a great opportunity for networking for other families as well.
Yeah.
Might be interested. So
Oh,
that's
good point. Yeah, good.
yeah.
And actually, to your point, we also thought it's just maybe we also thought being such a big geographical district, like maybe being a host family can feel lonely a bit because, the chances that you're going to find another Rotary Youth Exchange host family in the next town over is a little bit slim. So we thought maybe it'll help them feel just like our outbound parents, right? Our outbound parents now almost always have a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group, and they kind of work together and help support each other. And we thought maybe the host parents could do something like that too. So, okay, cool. Then we will move forward. Thanks, everyone. Okay. So a couple other things here. One thing I wanted to just briefly mention was the insurance. So all of the students coming into Central States do have a comprehensive Central States policy. I think there's one exception to that, and I think it's Sweden, but we don't have any students coming from Sweden. So all of the students will have the Central States health insurance policy. It's very comprehensive. It's very good. And so if a student has any, issues or anything, they can definitely use that. I don't know off the top of my head whether we actually have the policy listed in the toolkit. And if we don't, I will get that added so that you can see what the coverage is and stuff. Because I know we had an incident with Diego from Mexico a couple of years ago, and I didn't know whether Cairo was covered or physio or whatever. So I'll put a copy of that because I don't think it's currently in there. The other big thing about insurance is just please print the students' ID cards and insurance cards from YEA and ask them to carry a copy with them, right? They should have a copy, at least one copy, if not multiple. Like I got my student to put one in their backpack as well as their wallet, as well as their suitcase, because things get lost and even with the best intentions. So having that card in a couple different spots is a helpful thing to do. So, all right. Okay, the travel policy. I wanted to just briefly mention this. I think it's caused some confusion. I mean, looking at the chart, it's no wonder it causes a bit of confusion. It's not the easiest chart to follow. And we have simplified it a little bit over the years, but really, if the students are traveling for any real amount of time, they need to get permission. Now, the permission's not always from me as the inbound coordinator. Often it's just their host family and the YEO. And that's why this permission required column is really important. Basically, it's saying like, okay, so if I'm going to be going, away for one night, I'm staying at a friend's house, so I'm in my province, I'm not missing any school, who needs to know? Just the host family. They don't even need to submit the permission or the travel permission request. But, okay, we're going away for 4 to 7 nights. I'll be with my host family, missing less than 15 days of school. Okay, I need my host family's permission and I need the YEO's permission. So what you want to think about, because sometimes these questions come up. I think we've covered almost every scenario, but if you're unsure, you just want to think about like their safety is our top priority, right? So you can imagine, we don't want the students in especially big cities, but cities quite far away outside of the district where we can't get to them quickly if something goes wrong with people they don't know or people that we don't know or that we're unfamiliar with. We're thinking about sleeping situations. Do they have their own room? Do they not? They shouldn't, sharing a bed. Like all of these different factors are things we want you to be thinking about when you come to like, hey, do I need to submit a travel request for this? Just think about, would it be better that you as a YEO know that this is happening and that maybe we're on side with it as well as the district? So just be thinking about that. And when in doubt, submit the form. Generally speaking, if I don't have to approve it as the inbound coordinator, then I just don't respond to it. But the info's there. Everyone's got the data. The nice thing about it too is that when the student or whoever submits the form does so, the host family email address that they enter also gets a copy of all the information. The YEO gets a copy of the information, and then so do I. So if something were to go wrong, we have like where are they traveling, when are they traveling, who are they traveling with, how are they getting there? So that's really helpful, right? So I would suggest err on the side of caution and have them submit it. But again, if they're just staying over at a friend's house that, you as the YEO, you know them, or the host family knows this family and says, yeah, great family, they don't need to be submitting the form for that. But if they're going to Florida for 5 days, traveling by plane and stuff, then absolutely they need to be submitting that form. Okay. And preferably, within not less than 10 days when you know it. I mean, there's some instances where, hey, this Rotarian invited them to the cottage for the weekend. Is that a big deal? Again, use your judgment, but that's not as big of a deal as, hey, my host family's taking me to Florida, and I just submitted my things 24 hours ago and we leave in 5 minutes, right? We'd prefer to know that sooner so that if there's any questions we need to ask about, do they have their US visa? Is all of that in order? We can figure that out sooner. So any questions about that? Again, I know I'm bumping along, but I'm wanting to wrap up by 9 if we can. So, All right, cool. And in the toolkit, it does have the link to this travel permission form that I'm talking about. It's just a Google form. They fill out all the info, and again, all the applicable people get a copy. Okay. All right. One of the last things I wanted to talk about is sort of a District 6330 definition of the 60s. The reason I want to do this is because the kids come here with different versions or different definitions of the Ds, and then different clubs have different definitions, different host families. So I wanted to share with you what I tell the students at that Welcome Home conference. And I do tell them, here's my version of the Ds. I always say, if your host family or if your club is more strict than me, you have to follow your club or your host family's rules on this. I don't trump them. And I say, unless your family is completely ridiculous with the rules, then maybe I would step in and help you out. But otherwise, no. So I'm going to explain them, but then just so you know, I do tell the kids, if your host family says absolutely not on that sort of thing, then their rules are what we abide by. So no drinking alcohol. The one caveat there is I say, you know what? Leslie's my host mom. She offers me a glass of wine at dinner because the whole family's having wine. No problem. Or a beer, same idea. But I say, other than beer and wine, you should not be consuming any heavy liquor. So you're not doing shots of vodka, you're not doing rum, and you're certainly not doing it outside of your host family, right? Or maybe your YEO's house, for example. So you're not going to the school party and downing a 2-4 of whatever, right? So that would be my only exception to that. If the host family says, yeah, we all have a glass of wine the odd time with dinner, I'm totally okay with that in the home. All right. But again, I do tell them, if your host family says absolutely not, that's their rules and that's what stands. Okay. No driving. That is an absolute non-starter. There are no exceptions to that. Anything with an engine or a motor is off limits. And the reason for that is simply that they're not covered under the liability insurance. We did find out last year that they actually do have health insurance still, even if they're driving, but they don't have the liability insurance that comes with the Central States policy if they get into an accident. So we generally don't want them to know that they have the health insurance still, because we'd rather they just be scared to God not to drive and not to make that decision. Now, the thing I'll say that I feel is a little bit unfair to the kids, but it is what it is that this also includes anything with a motor. So even an e-scooter or an e-bike, those are also off limits. What's also off limits, and I've tried to outline this in the toolkit, is even being a passenger on higher risk off-road vehicles. So for example, they can't be a passenger on a snowmobile. They can't be a passenger on an ATV if it's off-road. Even though they're not the driver, the insurance policy, by what we're told, does not cover them for that. So I have tried to outline all of that in the toolkit. I know it sucks. I mean, especially the snowmobiling one, because I think that's a pretty big Canadian thing. But we've been told that they wouldn't be covered if they got into an accident. So we're erring on the side of caution there. So check out the toolkit for that kind of list of acceptable and unacceptable. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Sure. Just a question. Their host dad asked them to go out and cut the grass with a push mower. Not riding mower.
I would say a push mower is okay because they're not riding the vehicle. I don't actually know, but I would say it's okay because again, they're not mounting it in any way. What do you think, Ross? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, if it's just cutting the grass, that's as long as it's not a ride on.
Okay. Same would
free labor never hurt anyone.
Go for a snowblower?
Snowblower is good too.
Yeah.
Don't let them run over the court.
I mean, last winter the Borks were calling Chauvel. So yeah.
All right.
Make him cut the grass and blow the snow. All good.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the driving one, again, we're all pretty, we're on the same page on that one. I think just the biggest surprise that comes to people is the snowmobile thing, and that applies to a jet ski as well. They can't be a riders or drivers of a jet ski as well. Okay. Okay, on to the dating one. The dating one is the one where I think is the most. Oh yes, Don, go ahead.
I was just going to mention. If there is a member of a Rotary Club that has a private pilot's license, that also is a no-no. You cannot fly in a private aircraft.
Yeah, it has to be a regular chartered flight. Yeah. Yes. So that was another one that we found out through trial and error that is not allowed, which is unfortunate. Well, I don't think it happens that often, but anyway, that is another no-go. So they're really good old insurance, really clamping down. Onto the dating one. The dating one is the one where I think it's the most wishy-washy and the most questions come up. So here's basically how I say it to the kids. And I'm just saying it exactly the same way so that we're on the same page. Number one, I ask them, do your mom and dad want some souvenirs from your country? They always say yes. I say, is a baby one of those souvenirs that you think they want? And they always get red faced and go, oh my God. And they go, no. And I say, exactly. I don't think they do either. I also don't think you want a baby as a souvenir. And so I say, that's reason one for no dating. The next thing I say is, has anyone had syphilis or gonorrhea? They always go red faced again and say no. I say, well, not a fun souvenir either. That's the second reason we don't want you dating. And then the third one I say to them is I say, you're here to be an ambassador. Your job this year is to be an ambassador. I said, does a good ambassador walk into a party with lots of people and beeline for the most beautiful girl or guy in the room and spend their whole night talking to them and ignoring everybody else? Is that good ambassador behavior? Of course, the kids all say no. I say, what would a good ambassador do? And they say, well, they would talk to everybody, they'd be friendly, they'd be social. I say, exactly. So if you're showing up at the party and I see Judy across the room and I go, oh my gosh, and I beeline to her and I spend my whole night talking to her and then the rest of my exchange only trying to talk to her, I'm not being a good ambassador. And that's what I'm here to do, is to be a good ambassador. And so I say that's the third problem about dating, and I ask them to raise their hand. I say, have any of you had boyfriends or girlfriends or significant others? Some of them raise their hand. I say, what happens when you first start dating? And they all know. They say, you're kind of infatuated. You're sort of obsessed. It's so exciting. I say, exactly. And that's to the detriment of your host family, your host club, making friends at school, right? You kind of cut everybody else out. And again, the kids get this, right? Like, it sounds silly, but the kids are all shaking their heads. They get it. And so the advice we've given them is, if we say, so, you go to a party and you want to kiss someone, go ahead and kiss someone. I don't really care. But we don't want to get pregnant and we don't want any diseases. And generally speaking, kissing's not going to get us there. We're going to be okay. Right. And so that's kind of where we leave it. I've heard some districts saying, like, if you're going to do something, just make sure it's above the waist. I don't think that's terrible advice because we're dealing with teenagers who have desires. But I don't specifically necessarily say that to them. So that's my stance on dating. Again, as the host family and as the club, if you have stricter rules, you can certainly tell the students that. But that's that's kind of where I tell them. So I say, within that, I expect you to be a good ambassador and be able to use your judgment to know what dating is acceptable or not. If you go to a party and you kiss someone, not the end of the world. But I find out that you have been turning away opportunities to spend time with your host family and your friends because you're shacking up with somebody. That's not acceptable, because now you're being a bad ambassador. So that's kind of where I draw my line for them. So I think maybe Ross or Roseanne, you have a comment.
I come at it with the kids in a slightly different way. I remind them they are leaving at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us have a first love. And when we are lucky, we can remember, yes, we broke up, but I was ready to break up. Their relationship will end the day they get on the plane. And they will be dealing with all of their grief about saying goodbye to the country they've come to love. And it will be made more complicated by saying goodbye to somebody they have developed strong feelings for. So I try to talk to them about, this is also to protect your emotional well-being. You don't want to go home and be depressed when you find out 2 weeks after you left, the person you thought you were in love with is already moved on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think we also talk to them about it. I find that for me, we've had a couple of kids come back and they shared how heartbreaking it was for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the other thing. We're setting these kids up for emotional distress if we let them date. But I also think we need to be clear about, Kirk is focused on the sexual piece, but I think we also need to talk to them about, you know what, you're going to go to prom. And if a guy asks you to prom or a girl asks you to prom, we're not going to say, you can't go to prom, that's a date.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't want you going to prom and movies and the beach and with the same person every time, because some of the kids get so caught up in the no dating, they think they're not allowed to go to prom with a guy or a girl. Of course you can go to prom with a guy or a girl.
Yeah.
Of course you can have that experience. You can go to the Christmas dance. So when they say no dating, don't tell the kid they're not even allowed to go to prom with a member of the gender they prefer.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks, Roseanne. That's great. If you have any questions on that, I mean, some kids push this more than others. Some kids just, they come and they're 15 years old and it's not really even that much on their mind. Other kids, they show up and it really is something that they're dealing with. So let us know, right? Reach out and say, hey, I'm trying to establish some boundaries and I could use some assistance in kind of clarifying that. So Okay, no drugs. That one is really there. It's kind of like the driving. There's absolutely no exceptions to that. That includes cannabis, even though I know it's legal in Canada for 19 and older, but absolutely no drugs. And then the last two, no digital disrespect. That really refers to it used to be no downloading back in the day, and now it's digital disrespect. So what we say to the kids is like, don't download inappropriate things on your family's Wi-Fi, right? So don't download illegal movies and stuff like that in your family's home. Use streaming services that are paid for and that kind of thing. The other thing we tell them to think about is like if your host family uses something like Zoom, to do meetings for work, make sure that you're not gaming, for example, at a time when mom or dad have to be on a meeting that we don't want them to lose their bandwidth. And so just being respectful when it comes to digital stuff, and that also even includes how much time you're spending on your phone or on your computer. So just having those conversations. And then the last one is no disfigurements. And really what that refers to is no tattoos and no piercings. Okay. The last one it sort of refers to is kind of hair. We've had students kind of go, hey, I want to bleach my hair. I want to cut, my 4 feet of hair completely off and shave my head. Use your discretion as the YEO. If it's like, hey, well, do your mom and dad at home, are they okay with that? Is that something that's going to completely send them off their rocker? And if so, maybe we need to rethink that plan. If it's kind of like a, hey, you're going to bleach your hair and it'll be fine by the time you go back home anyway, probably not the end of the world, right? So use your judgment. If you're not sure, certainly reach out, but that's that last one. But definitely a no to the tattoos and the piercing. All right. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah.
We normally talk about the don't change your hair and everything in terms of the kids here. But when your student is about to go out, encourage them not to make a major change like that either.
Yeah.
The host family receiving them has gotten to know them based on that, and they want to recognize you at the airport. You also don't know until you arrive there whether your particular host family or host club is going to be socially accepting of you having bright pink hair or no hair. So although we're talking about inbounds right now, when you're prepping your outbound, remind them of that. Wait till they get there to do anything wild to their appearance.
Yeah, good point.
And wait to make sure their host families and host clubs approve of that wild change.
Yeah, thanks, Roseanne. That's a good point. Yeah, Suzanne.
One thing that I can say about that as well that we really emphasize with the outbounds, it came up this year that a couple of our outbounds in the Tri-District told me they were going to get piercings and tattoos before they left on their exchange. And we had to have a very stern conversation with them and their parents because some of the countries that they are going to, I'm going to use Thailand as an example, tattoos are not viewed in a positive way. I am not against tattoos in any way, but Thailand is really against it. And we had one of our rebound students speak with them about it and said, you know what, if you have a tattoo and you're going to Thailand, you could be viewed as basically gang related. The horrible person just because you have a tattoo. So really talking to your outbound students ahead of time as well is like, you know what, if you are planning on getting one of these tattoos or piercings before you go, you know what, hold off till you come home. And it's really emphasizing that to their parents as well, because their parents are probably going to have to sign off if they're getting a tattoo for one, or should be, but really emphasizing the reasons why for those outbounds especially.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, I'm running right along here. Okay, so that's the rest of the that's kind of everything we wanted to cover for now for the inbound program. The last part just is kind of questions and discussions. Just a couple quick points here. District interviews, I think Suzanne already mentioned this, but you're all invited. Sometimes the YEOs and YCs think that if they come, they're going to have to interview. And obviously we'd love for you to do that. But if you'd like to come and be more of an observer, kind of see what happens a little bit behind the curtain when you're not in an interview room, you're welcome to do that as well. We'd love to have you or members of your club that might just be interested in kind of getting a bit more involved. And then the last kind of two pieces there are just a bit of open question discussion. I know we're kind of bumping up on the 9 o'clock time here, but kind of what do we need to change or improve? What would you like to see from the district committee? And just are there any other questions, comments, or concerns that you have right now? And before I actually open the floor, one thing that we did talk about, are talking about implementing, is a couple other districts in central states use like a bit of a contract, maybe an agreement's a better word, that the families sign related to the fees, the outbound families for the fees, just that they know exactly what the fees are, what the refund dates are. So if you were to withdraw, at this point, how much money would you get back? And we actually would have the parents and students sign it. It is something we're thinking of implementing because just so it's very clear exactly how much money they would get back if they withdraw, kind of when the amounts are due, because that always seems to be a bit confusing for people. So that might be a piece we're going to implement this year as well. So now I'll stop talking. Questions, concerns, things you'd like to see us do better or more of, or less of, perhaps. Yeah, Dawn, go ahead.
I know we have a WhatsApp group with our inbound and outbound students. It might be nice to set up a WhatsApp group with our YEOs and YECs where we can chat amongst each other too. So
yeah, that's a great idea.
Not sure if everybody has WhatsApp, but it's something to definitely consider.
That's a great idea. And I think, I don't know about, there's a couple that weren't with last year's inbounds, but I think most of you were in that group chat. So I know most of you have it. So, okay. Thanks, Don. Yeah. Anything else? Judy and Sherry? Yeah.
I would like to know what the difference is. These people can't do skydiving or jump out of a plane, but they can walk off the CN Tower.
Yeah, that one I don't know what to tell you. That's just honestly what I think it is that the idea of like skydiving is just more general and broad. So it's been more like something that the insurance company has come up against more, whereas the walking on the CN Tower is a bit more specific. My guess is that if they find out about it, they would also say, no, that's not covered anymore. But it's just more, it hasn't come under their radar yet.
A lot more people have been hurt skydiving.
Right.
So far.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how long have we been walking off the CN Tower though?
Only a few years, maybe a decade, something like that. Not super long. Yeah. Yeah. I know. And really though, like to that point, Sherry, the bigger point that like Don Bork, who was, longtime district committee member and district chair, he sort of suggested that we actually push back on some of this because the insurance policy that we get doesn't stipulate any of this. It's just, you sort of find out, unfortunately, in an incident that like, oh yeah, no, you're not covered, that's not covered for our students. And it's like, what the heck? If the rule is no driving, then suddenly saying they can't even ride on a snowmobile is a bit of a different beast, right? So, our insurance person at Central States is working to get some clarity on that, so we're not kind of blindsided by these exceptions that pop up, seemingly out of nowhere. Other questions, concerns? Okay, well, we might be able to end on time after all. So just a quick thing of the recap and next steps then. So we're going to send you a link to this recording as well as the copy of the slides and a link but the next steps as well, which is basically this list here. So if you haven't already saved the YEO toolkit, you can go ahead and do that. The district calendar link is in there. If you haven't already, I think everyone in here is already a volunteer in the system, so that's not a concern. But for any, upcoming host families or any new people on your youth exchange committee, make sure that they fill out that volunteer application. And they'll need to complete a PVSC as part of that, the police vulnerable sector check, and then complete the NIAN youth protection training, which only takes about an hour or so. And the other pieces are just take some time to review the 6330 youth protection policy. Again, links in the toolkit. It's not a very thrilling read, but I think it is important that we all know kind of what our obligation is from a district perspective in terms of protecting our youth. It sometimes is a little bit of a confusing read, I'll admit, but I think it is important that we all kind of know so that we're all following the same rules and just are aware of it. Obviously, keep recruiting your host families and start recruiting your outbounds for next year. And then club commitments, please start talking to your districts, to your clubs for next year. I know it seems like a long time away, but of course you want it included in the budget for next year. So you've already got to start having those conversations so it gets kind of built in. And then one of the things that we might start doing is actually asking clubs to commit in maybe June for the next year. And that seems really early, but it's because when we go to the Central States Summer Conference, the board meeting there, they ask us there, how many students are you going to have for next year? So when we were just there this past July, right, last month, they said, okay, how many inbounds are you taking for 26, 27? How many outbounds are you sending? Well, we don't even ask you folks to give us a commitment till November. So it's really hard for us to come up with a number at Central States that's reliable. And so we might start moving our process up a little bit so that we go to that Central States Summer Conference already having figured out, approximately how many clubs are going to commit. So that might be happening in the future so that we kind of get our ducks in a row a bit sooner. I know that puts extra pressure on you, but it's just, it's such, as you can imagine, the wheels of the program are pretty big. And so to get everything to work smoothly, you really have to be working well in advance. So, okay. And then the last piece, just the next dates of our YEO training. As you guys probably know, we've broken this into 3 sessions rather than one big session like it used to be in person back before COVID. And so the next session is November 25th. If you want to mark your calendar, that'd be great. It'll be Zoom just like this. And the other one, our winter session, will be February 3rd as well. And all 3, like normal, all 3 are mandatory for YEOs, and we'd love to see the YECs there, so they're kind of in the know as well. Okay. I think that's it. We've reached the end. So a bit of a whirlwind there. I'll send the recording. If anybody has questions or comments or anything, feel free to stay behind and ask. But otherwise, you're free to go. And I just want to say thank you for your continued commitment to the program, to our kids. We are truly creating a more peaceful world, even though, exciting sessions like this may not always feel like it, but we really are. So thank you to everybody.